Have you ever said to yourself, I need to do this because I'm just a type A person? Or I wish I could be more organized, but I'm just a type B person. We say these things like they're facts about ourselves, like they're a permanent setting for our personality. But what if those labels, the ones we casually use to describe our personalities, are actually keeping us stuck? What if the story you tell yourself about the kind of person you are is the very thing stopping you from building the life that you want? Today, we're going to peel off those labels. We're going to talk about where the whole type A and type B thing actually came from and why it's not as helpful as you think. And most importantly, we're going to talk about a much more supportive way to think about ourselves as a busy mom trying to create a calmer life. Welcome to the Balance It Method podcast. If you're a working mom juggling a career, kids, housework, a social life, and endless piles of laundry, then you are in the right place, my friend. I'm Tamara, a mom, business owner, and your balanced living bestie. Each week, we will discuss simple, practical ways to better manage your time and energy so you can get things checked off that to-do list without burning yourself out in the process. If you're ready to take off that busy badge of honor and finally take control over life's chaos, then let's take this journey together as we learn how to balance it. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Balance It Method podcast. I'm your host, Tamara, and if you're new around here, welcome, my friend. This is the place where us busy moms are coming together to ditch the survival mode and move into a place that's much calmer and much more relaxed and still be able to get things done. And today is a really important conversation for us to have because I think we often use these personality labels as a definition of why we behave in certain ways, right? Like, oh, I just got caught doing this last week as a chair of an organization that we are organizing a fundraising event for my kids' school. I found myself stepping up and taking on responsibilities that were not mine to take. And when asked why I do that, I just said, I'm just a doer. I just need to do it myself. And I think we all put these labels on ourselves and then we behave in ways that are really unsupportive. Because let me tell you right now, when it comes to this event, I did not have the capacity to take on the stuff that I took on. I assigned those roles to other people for a reason. And just because they didn't get done immediately, I felt the need to step in and do them myself. And that's really not supportive to my capacity. Long term, that's really not a good way to be. And you probably do this too. Like if you're talking to another mom who is telling you about her meal plans and her Sunday reset system, like myself, you listen to this podcast and you roll your eyes and you're like, that's amazing for you. I wish I could do that, but I'm not a type A person. Or maybe you talk to another mom that's like, I'm just go with the flow. I don't really care about plans. And you're like, oh, I can't do that. I'm too type A. See how those labels are working? They're deciding what we think we can and can't do. Type A moms think they're supposed to be hyper organized and take on all the responsibilities. Type B moms think that they're just naturally chaotic, right? But here's what's really interesting. Those labels didn't come from like deep psychological research about human personality. They actually came from heart doctors. This is going to blow your mind. Hold on. So the whole idea of type A and type B personalities started in the 1950s with two cardiologists. They were studying patients with heart disease. One day they noticed that some of the people in the waiting room were sitting literally on the edges of their seats, like leaning forward, restless, impatient. That observation led them to a theory. They believed certain behavioral patterns, things like competitiveness, urgency, impatience, ambition, might increase the risk of heart disease. So they created two categories. Type A, driven, competitive, impatient, always rushing. Type B, relaxed, easygoing, less concerned with time pressure. And somehow we, over the next few decades, took that medical hypothesis and turned it into a personality and identity thing, which means that this label, this rough medical observation that actually modern psychology largely considers that this is outdated and oversimplistic, it actually is now shaping how millions of people around the world think of themselves. And the biggest problem that I see with these personality identifiers is that they are no longer considered like temporary behavior. But human behavior isn't fixed like that. A mom who's extremely organized at work might feel completely overwhelmed at home. A woman who thinks she's not disciplined might actually follow routines really beautifully when they're simple enough. A self-described perfectionist might easily let things go in areas that don't matter to them. We as human beings are not one thing. We as mothers are not one thing. We're adaptable. But the labels that we give ourselves keep us stuck. They create invisible rules like I'm a type B, so routines don't work for me, or I'm a type A, so I have control issues. I think if I was to identify myself, I would be a type C with control issues. Maybe a little bit of perfectionism mixed in there. I don't know. But you can see how these rules quietly limit when we're trying to change who we are. And so let's put this into the perspective of a mom who's trying to get her house under control. Someone will say, I wish I had a system like that, but I'm not organized, or I'm just not the kind of person who plans ahead. But the truth is, most people who appear organized aren't naturally that way. I was not born with some magic gene that allows me to be really good at creating systems and planning my time. I learned that mostly through anxious stress and adaptability because I needed to, right? It is a learned behavior. You can learn that, but you have to let go of the label that you've created for yourself, probably, that is holding you back from that real change. So here's our homework for the week. Here's our balance builder for the week. And this is homework for me too, because honestly, I do this all the time and give myself a label. But we're going to work on that this week by stopping ourselves when we feel it coming. You know, when we feel like taking on that responsibility that we know we don't have time for, but we want to do it because we're a type A, in quotations, we're going to pause and we're going to say no to that. We are going to walk away from that extra work. And for those of you who consider themselves to be maybe type B or type C, instead of using that as an excuse and a label for yourself, this week I want you to notice when you are going to put that label on yourself, and I want you to step back and say, I just haven't found a system that works for me yet here. These moments of pause are going to help us be able to create these new pathways, these new patterns that we can then follow so that we are not just stuck in that label. So the next time you catch yourself saying something like, that's just the kind of person I am, pause for a second and ask yourself, is that actually who I am, or is that just a label I've been carrying around? Because these labels we give ourselves actually matter, my friends. They shape what we believe is possible. And sometimes the most powerful step forward is simply peeling off the label. Okay, my friends, thank you for being here, and I'll see you again next week. Bye, guys.